No. Okay. Yeah, yeah. It's easier. Really, oh, I put one in gas, it's probably best. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she's not here in the it's been little here. Just write these down. When it's
Are you gonna?
Yeah, I'll make that motion. Yeah, right before the.
So like, they, you know, but they don't want, they're.
Sure.
Yeah, I will.
Right. Yeah.
Did you get Gene on there?
She's gonna have to ask. We're gonna have to let her to come in and receive that.
Everybody that's in this audience, if you could sign that paper, that would be great. If you have not, I need you to sign it. Thank you.
And then just kind of. Yeah.
Yes.
Not yet.
Oh my goodness. It's like, you know, so like, this is crazy. They probably don't put it. It was not even what.
And yet, and you, my leads. Yeah.
Are these both of them or just the ones that are?
It's just that.
Paul, did you have any? Did you get email them?
Oh, there
I
you
put them
go.
up already. That's just.
Will you quit change it yourself? Oh, thank you.
So, those changes start.
Okay.
Jean, can you talk?
Yes,
Oh, perfect.
can you hear me? Okay,
You gotta specify there. When you say G.
Oh, I'm sorry. No,
G.
you have the gag in your mouth tonight.
Oh, is that how it is?
We're gonna go ahead and call this meeting to order. We're waiting for the mayor to,
She gone now. You
Just
got
gonna
it.
go on.
come on, I guess she just came on. We have asked Jean Grotti to give the opening prayer and Misty Beard to lead the pledge of allegiance.
Our Father in heaven, we thank you for this beautiful day and for the many wonderful blessings that we enjoy as citizens of this nation and this town. We're grateful for the moisture that we receive and for the slow release of the snow from the mountains. We're grateful for all that we've been given. We pray that this night may have a semblance of decorum and thy spirit present as we discuss the needs of the town. Grateful for our residents and pray for each and every one of them. We say these things in the name of Jesus Christ.
Amen.
We all stand.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States.
Where do you want Mr. Young?
I do council comments. I don't want to get on my comments.
I would you like to go to item B, declaration of conflict of interest? Paul?
No conflict of interest, no ex parte communication.
Okay, Misty?
No conflict of interest, but is it fair to say if we talk to subdividers, we talk to all these guys, we all have communication with them, so I'm gonna put that out there.
I don't have any conflict of interest, but I've also talked to the parties involved. I just want to make that known. I also live close to one of the developments involved, but I don't think it's a conflict to me personally.
I have no declarations of conflicts of interest, and I have had no unethical communications with anyone.
Now go to council comments. And I would like the mayor's on, we can all hear, she had some comments. She mentioned to me she'd like to make the start. Jane Kraus, are you there?
yes, I'm here. I'm trying to remember what my comments were because I can't find my card with all my notes on it. It's somewhere in my suitcase. Let's see. I know I wanted to just make a comment to people that as you saw, there's this container out there beside the old church that Crystal will be working out of that for the next 2 months while the roof we have a new roof put on the town hall and air conditioning put in, and we paint some on the inside. So by the end of June, she should be ready to move back into the town hall. So if anyone has business with the town, they need to go see Crystal in that little container over there. Say what?
We're just making jokes, Mayor.
Okay, all right. Let's see. The second thing I was going to say is that Pocketville Road, we ordered the speed bumps. They should be in any day. If they're not here yet, they should be here any day. We will not install them right away. We need to get some signs, warning signs. And right now, Utah Barricade has all of their stuff out for the Huntsman Senior Games. So we will wait until the games are over and we can get some road signs that warn people. So once we get those signs, then we'll start installing those speed bumps on Pocketville Road. Third thing, I still don't have anything from Rocky Mountain Power about the status of the street lights that were supposed to be here in January. And we'll be following up with Rocky Mountain Power to see what's going on. I thought it's now 3 months late on those street lights. And then the last thing, I don't know how many people have paid attention to the fact that Jean Garate and I have been talking about turning the kitchen into a commercial kitchen. And there was this source of grant money from this Get Healthy Utah campaign. And I never did follow up on applying for grants because I thought this Get Healthy Utah was all for trails and things like that around town. And just last week, I found out some towns that 4 towns that received awards. I should say municipalities. They weren't towns, they're cities that received an award from the Get Healthy Utah. And it turned out that 2 of the towns, what happened that got them this Get Healthy Utah award was they offered canning and cooking classes and some healthy eating cooking classes at a kitchen there in their municipality. And I'm going, oh, well, this will fit perfect with what Jean and I were wanting to do with turning the kitchen into a commercial kitchen and might get us an award next year. So we shall see what happens. I think that's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you, Jean. Paul, do you have any comments?
No comments.
Misty? The only ones I have are regarding the budget. Excuse me, the year-to-date income that the town has. Last month, we had nearly $39,000 in income and approximately total expenses of $40,000. So we have a profit there. Excuse me, expenses of $52,000. So we have a loss for last month of $14,000. Year to date, we have profits of income of $766,000 and expenses of $401,000. So it left us with $364,000 in excess funds that came in. We have noted that we've had a sharp decline in income on certain areas, sales tax, transit room tax, resort tax. This is very common during February and March due to most of our money comes from the transit room taxes. So we're still showing a profit year to date. Yeah, that's the only comments I had, Jane.
Yeah, I want to use my comment to ask Mr. Stacy Young, as an engineer and an attorney from the St. George area that has some experience with short-term rentals. He's going to share a little bit with us, and then I'm hoping we can ask him a lot of questions, maybe just get some further insight.
Thanks for the opportunity to be with you tonight. Yeah, just to explain a little bit more kind of the background, I am an attorney and a developer, been in Washington County for about 20 years now. During that time, I've developed a number of projects. And I also, half my time is also spent in policy consulting.
You can take you need to, it's not designed for all people.
Thanks. And then about half my time I also do policy work for the some Utah Homeowners Association. So just to give you a overall perspective, the project that I'm most engaged with these days is the Ledges in St. George. You may be familiar with that. The relevance there is it's a 2,600 home project, master plan community. And out of that, about 400 units total we have designated for short-term rental. We built about 200 year to date. The oldest of those would probably now be a good 7 or 8 years. Old. So we've been sort of living now with that past asset class. I think countywide, the last time I looked, there were about 3,000 short-term rentals countywide. Probably about half of those are in St. George, and the other half sprinkled across the other smaller communities. Our experience with them is that they work quite well. They can really help for us as the Wedges, for example. It was really important for us to have more folks following as golf and hamburgers and things like that to make the overall community work. There was just not enough. And could raise the HOA high enough to support all of the amenities and so forth. And so somewhat analogous to a town, if you want to have a little bit more commercial viability, a little thicker tax base, they can really kind of help provide a good solution for folks. We definitely seen over the last number of years that visitors, they get something different from a short-term rental than they do from a hotel, and so they are quite popular. So for us, it feels like it's a thing that's better to sort of bring above board and come up with a set of reasonable rules around which everybody can agree, so that the frictions with neighbors can be minimized as much as possible. One advantage that you guys have at this point, frankly, is that a lot of other communities have had to sort of blaze the path with this stuff and kind of learn through trial and error about what the difficult things are and the things that maybe are not as big of a deal as you think going in. And so I can tell you there's a number of good resources out there today that would allow you to craft a good, reasonable ordinance that would allow you to let short-term rentals operate in a way that I don't think would negatively impact the community in a significant way. So those are probably my main comments. I really want to just kind of allow you guys to have some of the questions you might have as well. Those would be my probably comments.
Do you have any questions?
You mentioned that you utilize rules to try to govern short-term rental. Do you review those rules? What kind of rules do you implement? What have you found successful? What haven't you found successful?
Yeah, the first thing I'd say is that a lot of times the fears of these things tend to be less than the actual outcome. So at the Wedges, for example, of those 400 units and the 200 we have built, we've got a whole spectrum. So we have everything from quite small units up to very large homes that sleep a few dozen people. And there's one home in particular I'm thinking of that is sort of the largest of that category. And it's been in operation for 3 or 4 years. And I think we've only had 1 or 2 incidences over that entire time that really warranted any sort of intervention. But so with that said, the issues that we found, you want to be aware of parking, especially in bigger units, you want to make sure there's at least adequate parking to account for the probability that there may be more than one family arriving or different groups arriving in different cars. Garbage is something to be aware of, depending on how quickly and how frequently your pickup is. It's something to be aware of. If people are checking out like on Monday, when is the next pickup, and that sort of thing. And then just sort of kind of general nuisance considerations, so noise and light. And so one of the main ways that we've regulated that is we have only approved property managers that have to be available to intervene at any hour if there are noise problems. And we have some design standards, so as they are bringing forward their construction plans, we can review what their lighting is and set down rules. And so a lot of the focus ultimately for us ends up being actually in the rental contract, so that the visitors, when they show up, they're being notified what the rules are, what the curfew is, et cetera. So that's really helpful, and also making sure that there's a really adequate security and damage deposit that the renters are making up front, so that there's, they have an incentive to leave the place in good order and conduct themselves well while they're there. So those are probably the real highlights of the things that we found that are important to have in place. So some way to intervene if there is a problem group that shows up that isn't abiding by the rules. And then again, really, notifying folks as best we can of what those expectations are.
So what's the curfew that we use?
For us, we've made it 10 o'clock. So we have, in fact, we have a few properties, the large one I'm thinking of in particular, it has its own pickleball court and swim pool and sport court and a lot of outdoor places that really entice people to be out pretty late. And so that's when, we need to enforce that. So we also make sure that the light is kind of down face and we can't, project light upwards and or outwards towards the neighbors as well. So,
Is any of your buildings or facilities have rooftops on that individuals just let them?
no, I don't think we have anything,
Well, party decks on top of your head.
no, not on the news. We have, it's sort of your standard decks, but
What's your largest facility?
the largest one, the one I'm thinking of is, I think it's around 10,000 square feet. It's a very large structure, very large one.
And how many does it house?
I think it's advertised to hold, I mean, it's a few dozen, I think it's 24 to 30, somewhere in that range.
So are any of your rentals allowed to use them as events? Like if they're having a wedding and they're all staying there and then they want to get married in the backyard type of situation?
We haven't allowed events within the property themselves. We have a kind of event center at the clubhouse or in front of the house. We definitely have wedding parties that show up and they rent either one of those larger homes or multiple townhomes or whatever, but we don't allow events within those properties themselves. That's been really.
So what's your enforcement mechanism on this violation?
It's a combination of it's mainly fines and in the city's position, you can revoke, if you have people, you could compel them to license these, for example, and so you revoke licenses if there are repeated violations or so forth. Fines are the primary mechanism for me.
Do you have property management? Is your property management company for like the lenses, is it one company or do you have multiple based on purchasing of the homes? How do you do that?
We have one primary, we permitted one other property manager to manage a few units. The builder that built those, that was a request of theirs, so we accommodated the second one, but 90+% of them are managed by just one approved management company.
What kind of, as far as I'm guessing, part of as a developer, what kind of stipulations do you put on that property management company until like, do they just lose that contract if they don't?
Yeah, exactly. They have to be approved to be the property manager, so they have to bring in an application to us and it includes being registered and licensed, so having all of their ducks in a row legally, and then commitments in terms of what their staffing is and also we get approval over the rental contract as well. So as they enter into those agreements with folks that rent the project, we can stipulate as well.
Now does the town interface with that, or do they?
They do. So essentially when they reserve one of these units, they're signing one of these rental contracts. And so they're making a security deposit at that time. When they check in, there's a list of rules and so forth that are posted within the units, as an additional check on that. So all of their interaction really is with most of it's self-service in terms of checking and so forth. A lot of the property management company does just kind of organize the housekeeping and stuff like that, but they are available to answer questions and then you set up the terms of what that rental agreement is for the visitor.
I guess where I'm coming from is, you've got your property management company, you've got your property owners, developers, whoever they rent that, how is that? The town's concern here clearly is that property owners are not going to have good property management companies. And then how does the town hold that property management company responsible if there's some between the levels? How does the town protect itself and its residents?
Yeah, I would say in a lot of ways you would be in the position, in our case of the developer, so we're kind of in that role where we're largely hands off, but we've established the rules by which everybody will play. And so, so the first answer to it is that, by and large, it gets hashed out. The owners have a really strong incentive to, in fact, a lot of folks, why they like short-term rentals is because there's turnover. They, as opposed to a long-term rental, they're able to get in frequently and make sure the property is being kept up really well. So anything that is damaged or broken, they're on top of it and repairing right away. And again, there's a deposit on the line to make all of those fixes happen. So the property owners themselves have a pretty high stake in making sure the management company is doing a good job. So that's kind of the first line of defense. For us, we are sort of in the background. If stuff is starting to leak out, if you're starting to get complaints, or if you just have the occasional unruly gas, then we expect the property managers to intervene. And if we haven't really had a problem, we haven't ever, it's never gotten to a point where we said, no, you guys are not doing a good enough job. But we have the ability to, in your case, you'd be able to revoke their license or whatever. And fines, I think those are reasonable. I mean, under standard nuisance. The concept of nuisance ordinance.
So in the ledges or the ones that you've overseen, has the town ever had to step in because you guys aren't handling things?
No. St. George's decision, what they ultimately decided from kind of a policy standpoint is they would like, their preference was to see short-term rentals identified. And I've looked at your ordinance and takes a lot of good steps in a similar direction. They wanted to encourage them in new areas and ideally in places that were in projects that were more resort oriented. So that everybody knew up front what the rules were going to be. And you weren't sort of changing the nature of the standard neighborhood. So that was the approach they took. And I think it's worked pretty well in that way. So within the ledges, for example, our short-term rentals are clustered together. So the only place where there's any potential relief and friction is kind of where a short-term rental neighborhood and a non-short-term rental neighborhood.
What have you done to abate those issues?
It's part of it has been in the land planning. We've been able to use land features and stuff like that to create a little bit of a natural buffer. But a lot of it does go back to the rules. So having a curfew in line and those types of rules. Noise and light, again, we try to manage that stuff as much as we can on the front end in the design review process. So kind of having, from a city standpoint, it would be a matter of adopting a good lighting ordinance and we have kind of a park curfew or anything like that, something that would be comparable to that. That's what we basically matched in the St. George's Parks.
So you mentioned I'm asking, I just have a ton of questions I've been milling around. As far as retirement communities, do you have anything about retirement communities? How did you have a lot of people coming out of woodwork, or you abated their concerns?
Yeah, that's the Wedges it's not an age restricted community, but it's essentially age targeted. We don't have almost any families there. It's a very finicky, affluent homeowner there. And I would say that the concerns have been more on the front end. They've been nervous about, how are these gonna work? But by and large, they function well enough, and I think for them, they do also understand that it helps keep their HOA dues down because it helps support the golf course and some of those other things for the project. So I think they see it as having some benefit and not just cost to them.
What's your percentage of long-term rentals compared to short-term rentals? Long-term being more, yeah. Hopefully, I don't know if you break it down by 6 months or a year.
Yeah, well, part of the reason we did the short-term rental component of the ledges is the residents there were much more averse to long-term rentals, purpose-built long-term rentals. So we don't have any long-term rentals in the ledges, but we do have some of the short-term rentals that are rented for longer term. I'd say especially as COVID started, for example, there were I knew several folks that were here on vacation. COVID hit and they never left except to go pack their U-Haul and come back to St. George. So they become kind of this transitional rental type unit too. So people that are relocating to the area as they get the lay of the land of where they want to ultimately live or build or whatever, sometimes they will rent a short-term rental for 3 to 6 months or something like that. And I don't have I wouldn't be able to speak very intelligently on what our percentages these days, but out of those 200, it's probably less than a dozen. But it does solve the problem for some folks that are in that kind of position where they're kind of that short-term, long-term type of renter.
Okay, is there any other questions?
I got two. You said you look at our ordinances. And what do you see in our ordinances that we could improve on to help us have some stop gap or stop gaps for?
I think you're thinking about a lot of the right things. I think what I would say is I would really encourage you to almost take a beat and look at some of what the other best practices are in the county. There's lots of resources, myself and others that could definitely help you kind of think through. Some of it is a policy consideration that it's really your decision to make about how you want to guide and direct this. So, some of the actual ordinance itself will be informed by those decisions, but the concept of kind of conditional use or an overlay approach, putting it in new areas, I think that's generally considered a best practice. So yeah, I think it's on the right track. Yes, it's if you're concerned about kind of dialing it in, that's very doable. It's very doable.
The last question I got for you is, we don't want to mess with something that might be proprietary. Would there be contract or things that you guys or your property management company use that you could share with us?
Oh, I'm sure we could. Yeah, I'm sure we could do that.
Is there any other questions? If not, Mr. Young, we want to thank you for taking your time to come to us. We appreciate it.
You bet.
We'd like to go to the consent agenda. First is number 1, approve of minutes, March 21st, 23, and April 13th of 23, town council minutes.
I move that we separate item D2, which is approval of checks and invoices for March 2023. Oh, that was in last month's agenda. Oh, let me ask a question, Crystal. I just saw March, I was thinking April. I did not see anything in April's SharePoint on invoices.
We won't look at April's until May.
So this is March, but I didn't see March there either. So I would separate D2 approval checks and invoices for March 2023. So I'll move to separate that out from the consent agenda and continue it till next month.
I'll second that.
Okay, do you want to make a motion to accept
I
the
did.
consent agenda?
Mine was, oh, okay.
Was it to accept the consent agenda without that?
Yeah, to move that, and then once we vote on that, then I'll make a motion on the consent.
Say that again?
I'm making the motion that change to move from the consent agenda, item B to approval of checks and invoices.
Okay.
And continue it till next month.
Okay, all right.
I was,
I'll second it.
just, I don't think this calls for a roll call.
Yeah. I'm not wrong.
Yeah, all in favor? Aye. Okay, let's
I-
consider.
I said aye.
Consent agenda.
Oh, Jane,
Hey.
Jane, did you say you declined?
She said aye.
Okay.
I said aye, and then I need to say something before we move on to the next item on the agenda.
Okay, we're still on the consent agenda. And
When you're done, just let me know.
Will,
I move for approval of the consent agenda, items D1, D3, and D4, and authorize the appropriate individuals to sign or carry out, the items in this, consent agenda.
second. Okay, probably because we're spending money on four, let's do a roll call. Paul,
Aye.
Misty,
Aye.
Leroy, aye. Jane,
I was waiting for you to call my name. Aye.
Jane Kraus.
Aye.
Okay, now, Jane, we're moving on to item E, open forum. Did you want to say something before we open
Yes.
that?
Yes, when you guys were going through and asking everybody to declare conflicts of interest and ex parte communications, I did not address that. And I want to say that, like you, I believe that I do not have a conflict of interest on anything, even though I am next to one of the developments that would be affected by the ordinance. I'm not sure what item it is on the agenda. I'll look it up and tell you what item number. But because that ordinance applies to generally across town, I don't believe that that I have a conflict of interest on that.
Okay, thank you.
And I had no ex parte communications with anyone.
We're gonna move on to item E, open forum. This is limited to 2 minutes. You can speak on any subject you desire. We ask you to come to the podium, to state your name, and then you have 2 minutes. It's open now to the public.
My name is Pat Galvez. First, I'd like to thank you for this open forum opportunity to bring something up that's not on the agenda. And what I wanted to bring up was back in October, Crystal emailed a group of Frederick Garden residents saying the water would be turned off for a water connection on the highway project development. And that took place on October 26th. They did the work, they connected their water lines for their project and their development. And after they cut a 16-foot long, 3.5 foot wide asphalt chunk out of the road, it's been filled in with dirt and gravel since. And I've been waiting to see, are they gonna be reaccessing that water connection? I haven't seen anything done there. Tomorrow makes 6 months since they cut the road up. And I know in a newsletter a couple months ago, the mayor talked about monies available from the town for, I think it was called the Public Improvements Committee, but there wasn't enough money to fix every road in town. But I don't think the town should fix this. I think the developer should be contacted to patch that properly and put asphalt back in if they do not need access in there again, because it's an inconvenience, possibly a safety hazard for motorcycles, and there's some teenagers with dirt bikes going across there and stuff, but anyhow, it's just an inconvenience. And if every property owner in Virgin developed whatever they wanted and cut a chunk out of the road and left it, we'd have a pretty bad town. So I just like someone to please contact the developer and have that patched up so at their expense. Thank you.
Do we have anyone? Like to entertain a motion to close the open forum and open the public hearing?
Need to be, the motion to be still with that. For open forum or. No, it doesn't need to.
With the nation. Okay, we'll open the public meeting, accept public comments on proposed budget of Virgin Town for fiscal year end 2023 to 2024. Okay. I assume we don't have any comments from the public on that. So we'll move on to new business.
We will need a motion.
Good.
Okay, let's have a motion to close the public comments and open,
Let me ask some questions on the process. Budget is probably one of the most important things that the town does. I suppose the least one that we get comments on, and that's, I think, historically around the nation. People just don't even understand the budget, they don't comment on it. But I assume we're gonna discuss it and then not approve it until next month, correct?
yes, we can do that even though the mayor set it for approval.
Yeah, good, because I was
It
gonna
has
ask,
to be approved next month or by state regulation.
so I was gonna ask for a continuance of that discussion after we discussed it, so we didn't have approval to next month, because I wanna look at it more closely. I'm wondering if we just continue this open hearing until next month, and then give anybody an opportunity again next month to participate. So I would move that we continue this public hearing at the next regular meeting.
I'll second that.
Okay, well, wait. You guys gonna make a motion to open
Do we need to
the
close
public
the hearing?
hearing? No, you didn't make a motion to open the public hearing. You have to make a motion. No, yes, but they didn't make a motion to open.
All right,
public
We'll do it. I'll
hearing.
make a motion to open the public hearing.
Second,
All in favor?
I make a motion that we continue this public hearing until next meeting in May, which be our next regular meeting in May.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I need a motion to close the public meeting and open.
I'll make a
hearing.
motion to close the public hearing and open the public meeting.
Second. All in favor? Aye. We'll move on to the item one, the proposed budget reversion for fiscal year 2023 and 24. Are there any comments or any questions from the council?
I got all this.
Oh, you do? I have some more, and I may have to address them with legal or the mayor separately before next meeting, but the one comment I have now is I like to see stipend given to the non-paid members of the capital improvements committee. And the other members are paid because they're either a member of the town council or a member of the planning and zoning. Capital improvements committee is doing a lot of hard work, and I know it's not like a citizen volunteering for one item and then they're done. This is the constant process that they're going through. So my suggestion would be $50 a month, but that's just a suggestion to throw out. You could do it by hearing or by month. And if it's $50 a month, we have two non-paid members at $50, that's $600 a year, that's $1,200. But they've done a lot of work up to this point without any payment. And I think we should pay them for their time.
Okay,
I do have some concerns about setting a precedent though too. We also have a committee that's being put together to determine water leaks. We've got a JUC committee where we draw the line on paying committees.
Well,
Just asking.
yeah, I think the JEC committee is all related to development and they're being paid by their own, most of the members are being paid by their own organizations.
Probably not in the evening, though, when we have meetings.
What's that?
Probably not in the evening when we're having meetings like this.
Well, that's part of their job that they're getting paid for. So, I mean, it's by case basis, but, for the JEB, that's utilities companies coming in, that's planning and zoning members. That's you as a zoning administrator, you're already being paid by the town, so I don't see that as asking our citizens to volunteer for something and not paying them a small stipend. But it is a legitimate, I understand. And the water leak committees, I mean, that's the thing we'll have to look at. If we have somebody that's not on the council, do we pay them a stipend or don't?
I got questions and looking at you kind of break it down.
If you want to ask them here or talk to me later.
Which would you prefer? Let me just ask you that, because I have questions trying to understand.
It doesn't matter to me. If you want to make them public, that's what I'm really talking about.
That would.
Okay, go ahead.
I don't understand how to read your budget significantly enough to be able to determine how we're doing. Are we ahead? Are we a loss? How are we looking? Are we increasing our budget substantially in the last year? I just don't know how to read these very well.
Okay. But what we have done is, we've projected income significantly less than what we're making this year. And we've added things that we think we need to do, like roads, budgeted more for roads, more for the park. We have salaries we've budgeted for, because we lost our last public works man. When we went out into the community, we had to pay a lot more than we expect. So salaries are up. And then we increased a lot of things. So it shows that we're in a deficit, about $200,000 budgeted wise to income. But if you look at our historical returns, we're probably at a break even. We do have the money in the bank to cover that. We have not shown the $190,000 that's owed to us by one developer in the budget as coming in, because we don't know if it will come in. If that comes in, then our budget balance without us taking any from our reserves.
I believe that.
Did it come in? Okay, so it came in.
Then yeah, I'll sit down with you on the rest. I just like to have a better understanding.
And I can go over item by item with you, or item by item with any of the public that they would like, once they look at it. Next month, at the meeting, we plan to have the CPA here to go over those items. If anyone has any questions.
Thanks.
That's why I didn't realize it was on the agenda to be voted on. It was supposed to be here just for the public to have access to it.
You're right, I may have missed it when we were talking.
I have-
But my question is, I assume you built some type of inflationary factor in here. What percentage did you build into it, or was it depending on line item?
It depends on the line by line. Yeah. Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to table this item until next month's regularly scheduled meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, let's move on to item 2. An ordinance of the town council of Virgin Town establishing the Virgin Town Joint Utility Committee called JUC and setting forth its purpose, membership, chair, meetings, meeting procedure, duties, and powers. And this was approved by the Planning and Zoning Committee. Any comments from the council?
Would like to see it renamed to DR.
Well, that's what I was wondering, Gene, if you were gonna make a motion to rename it developmental review community DRC.
Yes.
I will make a motion that we, well, want to take public comment first, I guess.
You don't have to.
You don't,
No, we don't have to, there's no public comments. Okay.
did you want to or not?
I think they've had two opportunities.
I move for approval of the ordinance for, what's being called the Virgin Town Joint Utility Committee with the following amendments that we change it from, JUC Joint Utility Committee to Development Review Committee. Development Review Committee. Yes.
You seconded it. We have a second. We need a roll call on this, Heath.
No.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, we'll move on to item 3, an ordinance amending and restating section 1 through 18 of chapter 18. Conditions and consider continual use of the Virgin Uniform Land Use Ordinance, the VULU, to better establish the process, procedure, and criteria for the issuance and appeal of conditional use permits within the town, and to add the terms adversely affected party and joint utility board to section 2.12 definitions of VULU. And this was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Any comments from the council?
I've got two. I'd like to definitely make sure that this gets numbered in accordance with our numbering system, where it runs on even numbers, so that if amendments have to be made within it later, you've got a number to attach to it. So instead of 1 through 18, it would be 2 through 36. That's the first thing. Second thing is, under the revocation, suspension, and nullification of an issued CUP, we require, and this is a question more for Heath to get some guidance. We require when people come in for a new business license every year that they have a CUP, those conditions are reviewed. But there's nothing in here that says if somebody is discontinued that it can then be revoked. This is more like just for the beginning. I think that should be added, maybe a 16.08 C4. You've got it there.
Yeah, it's received.
Are you saying that it could be added under the make under C4 that says upon review of the CUPs, if you have failed to meet the CUP and you're not correcting it, then it can be.
Well, 3 says, that it can be revoked, suspended, or nullified. If substantial evidence in the record exists, CUP holder failed to commence the conditional use by the establishment date or abandon the conditional use for a period of 1 year. So what other situation are you saying?
I'm trying to think of an example, but that doesn't involve individuals specifically, but if somebody has altered their CUP.
Okay.
And is now operating like that, it sort of meets it, but it sort of does not, and they're continuing with that. That should be either revoked so that it can be revisited or revoked for non-compliance.
Well, that would be C2, that would be C2 substantial evidence the record exists that the conditions imposed upon the CUP have not been met.
Or so they've met it for a number of years and then they cease doing it. That's all I'm asking, is it covered?
Yeah, I do believe it's covered under 2. That we have the ability to revoke, suspend, or nullify.
That's all we need.
Well, I have some proposed amendments, but I want to make sure you get a motion on the table, and then I'll propose them. And we'll kind of do like we've done in the past and see which ones pass.
You're gonna do them individually?
Yeah, I think that way I can explain it.
I have something to say, before you go on and make, a proposal. I noticed that, a lot of the whereases are still not filled in. Should we be voting on this without these whereases filled in? We only have 2 so far.
Content, you can vote on. You can
Okay.
vote on the
Okay. I just want to be sure. Okay. So
Oh,
go
yeah,
on.
There is a version that has the whereas. I just don't know why. Before you make it, Leroy, does the numbering thing need to be in the motion? Or that's clerical?
You can put it.
Okay, you mind if I do it then?
Yeah, that's,
Yeah, go ahead.
I like that preference of going
I do. That's kind of what we were given from.
2, 4, 6, 8.
Right, it just makes it easier in case we have that's fit in between it.
So Jean, did you actually make a motion or you just said you wanted it to be renumbered?
I'm about to make a motion, but I wanted to know if that numbering needed to be included in the motion where it was. Kind of
Okay.
clean.
Okay,
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve. Ordinance number, I guess it doesn't have an ordinance, number, does it? The ordinance regarding chapter 16, 1 through 18, with the condition that the numbering follows the Unicode standard of even numbers. In this case, 2 through 36.
Yes. And that's item 3 on the agenda.
So
And do you want to add that also, JUB and JUC be renamed to CRC?
with the utility committee being renamed to ERC. Or development review.
And then also include these whereas when you find, that's because I didn't see that. I don't know where that is either, but I have to realize.
So been stated. That's not really.
Okay, then I have a motion to, amend motion, and I haven't passed it out. Sorry, Mayor.
Did we have a second on that motion?
Oh, second.
Did you say that?
No, I'm gonna make some amendments.
Okay, second.
I moved to amend it, and I submitted everybody except for, Mayor Kraus, who isn't present. I submitted, proposed amendment 1, appeal, and it deals with 16.06, appeal of CUP application determinations. And under A at the end, I'm suggesting that we add the language and post it upon the Utah Public Notice website. So it's a determination of right of appeal when the right of appeal starts. And right now, it's when CUP is considered determined when it's written and signed by the planning and zoning commission chair. But then we run into the problem, how does the public know? So I want to add the provision and post it upon the public notice website. And then in B, I propose that we delete the language where when somebody.
section?
1606B.
okay, thank you.
In 1606B, we require that the appellant provide a copy of all the documents. I'm suggesting that we delete a copy of, so they still provide a list of all documents and exhibits which they believe constitute a record. And then at the end, I suggest that the appellant shall provide a copy of all documents not on file with the town clerk within 10 days of filing the appeal form. So appellant would list all the documents that they believe constitute the appeal. Then that would give them 10 days to verify which ones the town has and doesn't have, and then they provide a copy of what the town doesn't have.
So, Paul, let's talk about that one for a second. That puts then a burden on the city from town when appeal is made, and we have to go out and look to see if they exist. And you're saying that creates a record. What if you later find a document that through initial, inspection, you say it doesn't exist?
And then come find out that we do have something. I don't know. I'm fine with them putting forth a list of all documents they intend to rely on, and that needs to be produced prior to the hearing. But I don't know about putting that burden on the town to do that.
No, it's a appellant.
Yeah,
The appellant shall provide all documents.
okay.
Don't forget,
Initially, they can put a list of what they suspect.
yeah, and the way I phrase it, the appellant shall provide a copy of all documents not on file with the town within 10 days upon.
Okay,
But if we want to change it to,
no, I'm fine with that, fine with that, not with fire.
So I want to make sure I understand. So the appellant will make their list of documents that they have submitted, or they believe they have submitted to the town, that are crucial to this case, or whatever.
That they believe exists. And then within 10 days, they have to produce documents that the town doesn't possess. Anything they're using the hearing, I mean, town needs to have a copy of it. No one should be going into the hearing blind. It should-
No, I
it should have a record.
Just trying to think about communication between the clerk and them. This is 10 business days. If the clerk's buried like she sometimes isn't able to go through and find what's there until the last minute, that puts a heavy burden on the appellant.
well, hopefully most of them have been posted to the public numbers website. Because if you're dealing with the CUP, you're dealing with the conditional use permit that was decided. There may be some documents that the appellant will decide that they want to support their case with, that wasn't presented or isn't on file with the town, and now would require them to do so.
Just so you understand, I'm not arguing in favor of the appellant. I just want to make sure that
You understand it now?
we're in a situation where the town clerk and the appellant, if they don't communicate well, there could be miscommunication, there, there's something held by the clerk. The appellant is not aware of within the 10-day period. Now what?
Well, as a practical matter, you're gonna get that anyway when you appeal. The appellant's gonna come in and demand all these documents from the town because they don't have them. Except for the ones that they can download off the public notice website. They come into the town and they ask, can you produce this and that? And the way it works now, you have to do it before your appeal. All this does is you have to create that list and then you gotta produce them after your appeal. So I think the burden in Bristol is the same, it's just a matter of the time.
I would rather not say 10 days after, I would say within 30 days of an appeal hearing.
And I'm fine with that.
Simply because timing and if the city can't produce documents, like you said, say someone files an appeal next day or the same day they come and file their appeal, they submit a grant request, and it takes the town longer than 10 days to fulfill the grant request. Then they would run afoul of that 10-day requirement. But if we set it at least 30 days in advance of the hearing, when the appeal authority is looking at setting the hearing date, speaking with both the appellant, he would just have to say, okay, is there documents that you have, requested to grandma? Have they been produced? Okay, well, let's set this 45 days out or 30 days out. I don't even know if it needs to be 30 days, but I'd rather set it so that the appellant is producing all the documents they intend to rely upon at the hearing, at least a certain period of time, so that the appeal authority has it, the town has it, and everyone can fairly be prepared to know what documents are going to be utilized.
And right now, the way the ordinance reads is appellant authority sets the hearing within 45 days. So it's kind of a quick turn now.
If you want to say 15 days before the hearing, I mean, 2 weeks' time is plenty of time to review whatever the appellant has produced and be prepared for that hearing.
What about the appellant shall provide a copy of all documents with the town
Within
15 days prior to the
Hearing date. That's just what I think that's a fair way to do it. But
I'll accept it, those changes.
hearing.
Did you want to do your next amendment?
Okay, we want to vote on that one amendment first, so. I didn't make it, if it's an amendment to the motion.
So I'm not parliamentarian. Vote on that amendment before we.
He'd like to do them one by one. I think he's got multiple amendments.
Call for a vote on that amendment. Or do we have a second on it first?
Yes.
Okay. Paul,
Aye.
Misty,
Aye.
Leroy, aye.
Aye.
Okay, the proposal amendment 2, Mayor Kraus asked for 16.16, and I don't know if she said aye, I assume she did, I didn't hear. 16.16 general CUP review criteria. The last one that and and it reads adequate general liability insurance coverage as necessary or as otherwise required by ordinance of the town. So I'm suggesting we add that provision to the end. And the reason is because I've seen where we require insurance and we don't really have a standard insurance and it's what I'm hoping to do at some point in the future, either by resolution or ordinance, create a standard requirement for insurance. So it's out there, it's straightforward that this will be the level that we would need. And so instead of having planning and zoning commission, if they're the one that's deciding this, doing it on a case by case basis, they apply that unless there's some other reason to change that.
I think I would be more prone to say, just to take off or by the town at the end. I don't like arbitrary. Steps. So you know, saying, if we identify an ordinance, because there are certain businesses that do not require insurance, flat out, that's all there is to it. So do we, if we have it by ordinance, then it can be specified.
And I'm all right by doing
But leave it out or by the town, where it can't be arbitrary. Heath?
I have to go by ordinance, and not, so we need to do it. If we're making any amendments to future ordinances or the specific criteria for certain types of CMPs, then we can set the standard there.
And I'm all right with that as an amendment to my amendment, so.
So I would word it to say adequate general liability insurance coverage as required by ordinance.
As required by ordinance.
You okay with that?
Yeah, I'm all right. Well, we're gonna have
We have
some,
separate standards for things like, you know, horseback, trail riding
Versus a hairstyle.
versus a hairstyle.
Okay, do I have a second for that or by ordinance?
I'll say that.
Okay, Paul,
I,
Misty,
Aye.
Leroy, aye. Gene Kraus,
Hold on.
Aye.
Gene Gotti.
Yes.
Okay, your second, your third amendment.
my third amendment is probably more of the one that I don't think I'm gonna get the complete commission buy-in, but what I would like to do is propose that we change, right now, the ordinance is that conditional use permits are decided at the some planning and zoning commission. And then they're appealed to the appellate authority. I'm proposing that the town council makes the decision on.
Thank you, you're doing so much.
I'm proposing that the town council makes the decision on conditional use permits, not the planning and zoning commission. But the planning and zoning commission will still conduct the hearing, and then they would forward their recommendation to the town, and the town would base the town council would base their decision upon the record before the planning and zoning commission and base it upon the recommendation of planning and zoning commission. So there'd be no new testimony taken at the town council. I think that was concern of one council member.
So by doing this, then the appeal authority becomes the attorney, not this attorney, but our appeal attorney.
Well, I think it's that way already under this ordinance, if I'm not mistaken. That was changed, yeah. Yeah. I philosophically, we're a small town. I think the decisions that upset most of the public are the planning and zoning decisions. And since we're the elected officials, the buck should stop here and we should make those controversial decisions. That's the philosophical,
I get what you're saying.
yeah, and so.
And I disagree with it because I feel like we need to empower our land use appointed officials to do their job. We're taking everything away from them. What's the point of having a planning and zoning board? I think this should be something that they oversee. If there's an appeal, it still gets appealed to a third party and the town council should be involved in that.
Paul, let me make sure I understand. The proposal is that it first, a conditional use permit application first comes to the planning commission for a public hearing and a recommendation, and then it goes to council for a final decision.
Yes,
The only difference
That process isn't prescribed at all or required by state law. This would be something we would be creating at our local level.
what state law allows.
Yeah, we can create the process how we want to, and we can delegate as the council, as the land use authority within the town, we can delegate part of our land use authority to the planning commission, which is what has happened and has been the way we've been operating. But we've been doing it on a two-tiered basis with level 1 conditional use permits being decided by the planning and zoning administrator and level 2 conditional use permits being determined by the planning commission. Now we're making them all one level and all decided by the planning commission. You're asking to move it then up and have a two-tiered process. So for an application, after you've had a zone change process, which is similar, where you've had a public hearing and a recommendation from the planning commission, then it goes to council, then the person comes back through for a conditional use permit, and the planning commission holds a public hearing, makes a recommendation, and it goes up to the council for decision too. I'm trying to think if I know any municipalities, at least in Washington County, that does it that way. But Nathan, you're a member of the Sacred City Planning Commission. If you decide all conditions.
That's my right. I don't think they changed it. It's primarily because the standard for CUPs is you gotta approve them unless there's no conditions you can place on it to mitigate it. So that's why it's almost administrative.
Yeah, it is more ministerial. It is definitely legislative act. It's an administrative function. My question is if we're gonna take back things like, if council's gonna take back things like conditional use permits, council want to meet and have 2 business meetings a month because you're starting to bring more. Unless you want to have 4-hour council meeting once a month or 5-hour council meetings every minute. It's just administratively, that's another administrative function that we would be taking back, but I understand it's a small town and there's reasoning. The buck, Paul's point is the buck stops with the elected officials, why the public didn't elect any of the planning commission members, but the elected officials appointed them.
I still think we hold that right, though. The town has the appeal authority to appeal the CUP from the. If we don't like the outcome from the public and from public hearing and from the planning and zoning, we as a body can appeal that on behalf of whoever. It's our right to appeal. I like it the way it's set up personally. I think it's a good breakup of power.
So I guess the question is there a second for my proposed amendment? Looks like it does.
I said I will second your amendment.
Well, you will, okay.
I will.
Okay, let's take a vote. Paul,
Aye.
Misty, I'll move on, Misty.
Yeah, I'm gonna say,
Leroy, no.
No,
Gene Cross,
Yes.
So now it's a vote on the amended ordinance, amended motion.
Okay, let's vote on the amended. We'll take, Paul,
Aye.
Misty,
Aye.
Leroy, aye. Jane,
No,
Jane
What is-
Cross,
What was the
Yes.
amendment?
It's all three amendments.
The motion.
Oh, all three.
It's-
All
it's
three?
as amended.
Yes, yes.
well, you didn't see that coming.
okay, I think we're on item 5 now. An ordinance amending chapter 6 and 34 of the Virgin Uniform Land Use Ordinance, further regulating STR in overlay zones. P and Z recommended denial. Any comments from the council?
Yeah, I'd like to hear why, even though I was there, I think we give for our commission chair to tell us why it was denied.
That was gonna be my next question.
That's good.
This is amendments to the SDR overlay.
So this was a vote 3-.
Wait a minute, wait. You skipped an item on the agenda. There's an item before the STR. You skipped number 4. You guys went to number 5. You didn't talk about number 4.
Okay, sorry about that.
Okay.
Go to number 4, an ordinance of the town of Virgin, Utah, providing that Virgin Uniform Land Use Code be amended to revising section 44.06A2 and 44.06A4 entitled Location of said code, providing the location eligibility for Highway Resort Zone HRZ of the town of Virgin be revised. P and Z approved with additions of the quarterly section.
Point of information. Heath,
Yes.
this one, and I just realized, this one we just passed, now has a conflict.
What?
We have everything in here deals with rules going through the.
Yeah.
So how is that gonna work?
Still does. You mean through the DRC?
No,
Planning commission.
all the CUP stuff is written for planning commission, and now it's completely void by that amendment. Because it's decision made by the council. How am I gonna rectify that?
I'm not sure what you're at.
Well, we didn't vote on express language. You made a motion to approve it with change, and if you read the language of the amendments to the conditional use chapter 16 chapter, it's talking about the planning commission only holding a public hearing, making a vote. And now your motion says holding a public hearing, making an amending vote, and then counting.
We have language that's clashing,
Well, it's not clashing, it's just,
well,
One
electronics.
of my proposed amendment 3. That I submitted to all the members.
is it in the SharePoint?
No, I handed you a copy, and each of the council members has a copy except for the mayor. It talks about under AE, a recommendation to the planning and zoning commission on whether to recommend approval tonight or approval conditions. And then under B1, a meeting for review and recommendation to town council. Under 7, it is a conclusion of the review, may recommend to town council.
There is something, I mean, I'm just.
Yes, we suppose that any changes.
So I covered all the conflicts in that.
Has the mayor read this?
No. No, I think the copies were put in your folders and I haven't seen it. But reviewing chapter 16.
And my question becomes a little bit more, is this a substantial change to the ordinance as the draft form that was given to the public? I'm gonna be honest with you, Paul, I do think that it is a substantial change in the sense that it's creating a two-tier approval process with planning commission, holding public hearings, recommending, and council then having the final land use decision on it. That structurally is substantially different than the version of the ordinance the public has seen in the last 10 days. So I would think out of abundance of caution, if we may want to have this, we may want to have this ordinance, we reopen it and table it, set it for a public hearing, or set it at least for our next council meeting, have the draft version of it available to the public.
And I'm all right.
And I'd be,
I'm all right with that.
I'd even prefer to have the public make comment on that.
And I have no problem with that. I think that's probably the better way to go, to have the full public process on that change.
And I guess where I'm getting at too, and this is no means or recommended or anything like that, but I appreciate this is a lot of work being done, Paul. And it is all of the pending change that you wanted, and I can see it, but seeing it the night of, I didn't even realize that's what this was. And
we
it
briefly
makes me and or the council have to make a decision whether it's substantial change from the draft.
we briefly discussed it at the work session, but being out of town, we came in today and had to drop something quickly. So, but I have no problem
You want to make a motion to table it?
well, it's what the proper way would be for one of the members to ask to consider that was on
Motion to reconsider.
the motion to
last vote,
reconsider
And
and
to table it to next meeting. Draft can be provided.
Asking about it, I'll make a motion that.
well, you weren't on the approving side, so we can,
Oh, yeah.
it's got to come from
I
Gene
heard
or.
it bounce out one can come from those who voted yea for
If
it.
I could find my. So I can leave it on. Okay, I motion to reconsider item number 3 in new business. An ordinance amending and restating sections 1 through 18 of chapter 16, conditional uses. Conditions and conditional uses, the Virgin Uniform Land Use Ordinance. It's to better establish the process, procedures, and criteria for the issuance of appeals of conditional use.
Then I think we have to vote on the motion to reconsider. Oh, there needs to be a second.
Second, and then Leroy, if you want a second, and then you call.
I'll second.
To reconsider.
Okay, call for vote, Gene Kraus. Gene,
Sorry, I had it on mute. Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Misty,
Aye.
Leroy, aye. Okay. Now we move on to item,
Well, now that,
No, now it's open for reconsideration. Now I would say that it's motion to table it to next vote on at next meeting after a draft a clean draft copy or red line copy of ordinance has been uploaded and posted 10 days in advance.
I'll accept the motion.
a motion.
We can have it. We can have it at the work meeting. Our
Well,
work
it needs
meeting.
It needs to go back to planning and zoning too.
I understand, but
Yeah, it does need to go back to planning commission for a public hearing.
yes,
I
but
motion that we table this matter and send it to.
no, it's coming
Um,
back to the town council for us to look at the redrafted form before it goes to planning commission. That's what he said.
Well, we've got the form right here. Paul gave us the actual language that he made his motions based on. It just
Okay.
needs to be
It just needs to go through the planning and zoning commission, have a public hearing on it with their
I understand.
recommendation to us. Yeah.
I understand.
Well, I don't need that, I don't think it needs to come back to the council to see the form. We have the form right here in front of us. I think it just needs to be seen to the planning commission for a standard public notice, 10-day advance notice.
So
Okay.
I move that we table this matter and process this proposed ordinance change through the planning and zoning commission with the proper 10-day hearing and bring it back to us at the next regular council meeting.
I'll second. Paul,
I
Misty,
Aye.
Leroy, I, Gene Kraus,
I,
Gene Karati. Okay, and we'll move on to item 4. And I've just read that, I don't think I need to read it again. So, any comments from the town council? Okay, I'll entertain a motion for item 4.
well,
For the ordinance, providing that the Virgin Reform Land Use Code be amended by revising section 44.0682 and 44.0684 and other location of the code, providing the location eligibility for highway resort. So, the town that can be revised.
Okay, do I have a second?
a second for what?
Okay, we'll call the vote, Paul, Misty,
Can we discuss this a little more? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We have not discussed this.
You said we did not, sorry, I just had some questions. I want to make sure, because this got fiddled around with a bunch, and I want to make sure we look at the proper language. So is this the one you guys approved? Commission or? We've been rewritten that 15 documents.
Okay, so the language in here is correct with one exception, that
Section.
the section coordinates should be placed into item number 3. In the exact same location as it is now, if you move to 3. That was the recommendation.
okay,
So.
you want to amend
I
the
just- No. Well, I will, yes, but does everybody understand what that section line is? I think that's important. We all know what we're voting on.
If the road goes this way, there's a line like that.
It's the section line on the north side. Yeah.
Runs parallel with the road.
Right. So that it
So what
keeps
if
each
it
other
cut out?
from coming.
Show me.
That's
where my-
coming across the hill.
It keeps it from coming across the hill.
Right.
Correct.
Seems like the section line follows the ridge line of the water tank bill. And it was done by the engineer when the eligibility was put in place. So that the east side of that hill, the county line, and everything that's bordering off of the down to the line would stay elevated. The west side, where there are homes and development of homes being considered.
I understand the concern. I understand what it is, the concern for me. The only concern is that section line, where does that sit? Is that on the road that goes up to Butler? Or is it right through the middle of the subdivision that's been being looked at for highway resort over there already?
And so that line runs approximately just to the west of the water tower, and it runs almost parallel with it runs north and south. So,
Sorry, I'm gonna clarify so we understand. This map was shit. So this is, so is this the line?
no,
Because we have a subdivision going in right here.
correct.
If it's a highway resort. So you're saying it's somewhere here.
Yeah, up thereabouts, maybe a little bit farther east.
Why did you guys want to cut the line there?
That's an original line
Okay,
from the original wording.
okay,
When it was rewritten, it was inadvertently removed.
okay. So is this does not continue it up Collab Terrace Road, or does it?
Whole idea was to cut this section.
Right. Okay, I just want to make sure I was understanding that properly.
I'd like to see if you go over that line, because it's an easy delineation. So that's nice to talk about the roadway. Yeah. it's kind of road. But right now it's on-
I'm not sure what.
That's not, that's the easement to the town waters. It's just an easy line, because it's a property line also that runs through there.
If you may, my preference would be to pin the boundaries of zoning districts on dedicated roads or sections.
You've got a property line.
If I may speak to why that line was not used in the original writing of this ordinance, it was because that's all hilltop there. And the concern would be having a bunch of resort pushed over on top of the houses that live below it. So most of those homes over there on that side are underneath the hill. And so to keep the resort zone away from the ledge and above those homes, they use this section on it.
I'd like to see what that's at.
Any other questions? You want to table this until you know where
I
that
would like
is?
to, but I'm not even the first here, so that's up to you guys. I'd like to see where that line's at.
I think there's some time in the time now because you have the BLM doing the sale. And I think it's important that we get this decided because they need to advertise the sale depending on what the zoning is.
Then if we,
The
eligibility, I'm fine. As it's written, I'm fine, but I'd like to, if we're gonna reinstitute that line, I'd like to see where that's at before it's reinstituted.
Do you want to make a proposal then as it is without the
Yeah.
section line?
I mean, that's the way you put your motion, in, right?
What's I went
Your
there,
motion was to approve this as written.
yes,
Okay, do I have a second then on that? I'll second it. Paul,
I,
Misty,
Aye.
Leroy, I, Gene Kraus,
Aye.
Jamie Karati.
Aye.
Okay. We move on to item 5, an ordinance amending chapter 60 and 64 of Virgin Uniform Land Use Ordinance. Further regulate SRPs in overlay zones. P and Z recommended denied. Can we have, Cameron, would you mind warning us on why P and Z denied it?
The vote was 3-2 on this recommended denial. The recommendation for denial was submitted because based on the public comments, the change to regulate STRs to under 5 bedrooms was just too onerous, it seemed, based on public comments we heard. And there would be other ways to regulate that that wouldn't be so onerous. Obviously, that was not intended to go.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the council?
Is Ken still here? Ken? Were you on the denial side of the vote or the approval? I just wanted to see if somebody was here for the second opinion.
What was the question?
Were you on the denial side of the approval for this ordinance, or were you on the, if you don't mind me asking, if you
Yeah.
were on the approval side?
For number 4,
Number 5.
no,
So you were on the denial side or the approval?
Oh, as far as the vote was concerned?
Yes.
I voted no.
You voted to deny.
No, yes.
No, no, he was one of the,
I'm just
I
asking.
stand corrected. Pretty sure you voted. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you, I'm sorry.
yes, I'd just like to hear your reason to that, if you don't mind. You don't have, I haven't had a chance to ask you, I'm sorry.
I think going back, as far as my memory can take me to that vote and the discussion that was had at the time. That my comments to begin with are as they have been about short-term rentals, that I think we have to be extremely cautious, and I'm generally not in favor of, especially in a neighborhood, residential neighborhood. But I'm pretty ignorant. I appreciate the comments that were made earlier today. We're fledglings, and I think it's really important that we understand what we're talking about, and so my comments were negative at the meeting. Do you have anything there, Crystal, that says how I voted?
I'm not trying to pin you down, I
No, that's
just like
okay.
to hear both sides. of
I'd
it.
rather be right than guessing at this.
Right,
Because I may have voted in favor just because that's the way it was going.
right.
And after the discussion that happened, that was further after my comments.
I appreciate your honesty about your memory.
Also, I do want to thank some residents of, that come today, the McCanns and the Mays, who live up with Peterson's in support of the ordinance that you just passed. And I appreciate that coming to support that tonight.
Vote when, Sean Hammond made the motion to table with indefinitely, no second, motion fails. Wyatt Lee made a motion to recommend that county council, Cameron second. Sean, was in favor, Kevin was not in favor, Cameron was in favor. Wyatt was in favor, Ron was not in favor.
I voted no.
Thank you for.
Thank you. Any other comments? Town council?
We move for approval of the ordinance amending chapter 16 and 34 of the Virgin and New York Land Use Ordinance. That regulates STRs and that's listed in the.
I have a second.
what was his motion?
My motion was to approve the ordinance amending chapter 66 and 34 as listed in item 5, the short-term rental overlay discussion.
Just as it's written?
Yes.
I'll second.
Yeah, call for a vote. Gene Kraus,
Yes,
Paul,
Aye.
Misty,
No,
Leroy, no. Gene, Robbie? I didn't hear you, Gene.
No.
Okay. And number 5, looks like the council went along with the recommendation by the P and Z. Number 6,
I move that we table number 6 because if I'm not mistaken, isn't that covered under the ordinance? Fees that you had drafted via that first party in that ordinance, so instead of having the 2 ordinances, I will table this until next meeting until we see what happens with.
Just a quick question, and I will send it to you. Did you look through 212 and all the places where that exists, or were you?
No, I haven't. We added the term adversely affected party into it, and we use that term in the amendments that we just made to chapter 16.
I think
But
this
there
is
are-
capitalizing and changing the rest of the ordinance.
Yeah. I haven't gone through and cross-checked, that these would be other places where the term adversely affected party should be used. Cameron, did the planning commission do that?
That's the ordinance that you're speaking to now, and there was only one other illustration, 16 points, 1, 2.
So P and Z recommended approval with removing everything out of there except for 6.12. That was the only section that the guys.
Okay, so the ordinance that I drafted that you guys approved, I caught it in 16.4, 16.6, 16.05. And I changed it in the definition section 0.12. They're saying the only place I missed it was there should have been a reference to adversely affected party in 6.12. It's 6.12. Makes sense. Who can make the appeal to an appeal authority? Only the adversely affected party. So that would be in things other than appeals of conditional use permits, because there are other things that are appealed to the appeal authority, so.
And Keith's definition under adversely affected party will keep being sent back to the planning board as part of that complete ordinance. Because you did it in the second ordinance.
I did.
So,
I did.
so I want to table this for till next meeting.
All right, have a second on that?
I'll second.
So I don't think we need a roll call on this.
No.
Okay, ready to roll?
Aye.
Hi.
Aye.
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 I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
We should adjourn.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Gene Kraus, we didn't even make it to 9.
That's great. That's fabulous. I'm glad to hear it. Good meeting, Leroy.
Okay. Hey, you have a good vacation and enjoy your family.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
We did push N. Push N.